High above Mount Olympus, there sits a curly-bearded uncle with a body sculpted like a Gymshark model lightning bolt in hand, chilling in his five-star cloud castle. Surrounding him are goddesses and nymphs, graceful, dreamy, like they just stepped out of an Instagram filter. But behind all that sparkle and glory lies a truth your textbooks never dared to mention. This man, Zeus, was not the wise old father of the gods. He was the CEO of a divine seduction ring, a master of turning sex into foreign policy. And the worst part, the world applauded him, worshipped him, named their children after him, printed his face on coffee mugs, while dozens, maybe hundreds of his victims, who were turned into cows, trees, gusts of wind, or even mere echoes, were erased forever from the so-called legendary myths. Before we pull back the curtain on this tale, a tale both dazzling and rotten to its core, if you enjoy these spicy takes on history, hit that subscribe button and join me in exposing more of these all-powerful gods. And do not be shy. Drop a comment and let me know where you are watching from. Because it is kind of magical, is it not, that we from all corners of the world can come together to revisit the past through the ears of the 21st century. The story you are about to hear is not about a god. It is about a system fueled by silence, power, and lightning, all dressed up in excellent PR. His name was Zeus. And after this video, you will never look at Greek mythology the same way again. Part 1: Zeus, from thunder god to divine flirt. If you think Zeus was some kind of gentle, silver-bearded deity sitting on clouds tossing lightning bolts to keep peace in the universe, then welcome to reality. He was an immortal playboy, the ultimate drama king, and the founding father of the concept. A one-night stand that gave birth to an entire civilization. Picture a mind map with Zeus's glorious face in the center, hair curled like a shampoo commercial, and hundreds of red strings stretching in every direction, each one leading to the name of a woman. A few animals, a handful of reluctant princesses, and a battalion of children who are part god, part human, and part untraceable. Even the FBI would be overwhelmed. Zeus was not the god of thunder. Zeus was the original founder of OnlyOlympus.com. Since the time when humans still thought fire was magic, Zeus had been wandering the heavens with a singular mission. If you do not already have my child, just wait. The ancient Greeks spent centuries mythologizing his behavior, writing poems, building temples, painting mosaics, but the truth, Zeus was the original definition of a powerful man-child, irresponsible without limits, and most of all, completely unfamiliar with the concept of enough. Even from birth, Zeus was already the beta version of outrageous. Swallowed whole by his father, the Titan Cronus, no problem. He escaped, overthrew his dad, split up the universe with his brothers, and then gave them fancy titles while declaring himself chairman of the divine council of the cosmos. But power did not stop Zeus at governance. No. Zeus did not rule, he ran a full-scale, organized flirtation campaign. First case, Metis, the goddess of wisdom, the smartest woman on Mount Olympus. Zeus heard she might give birth to a child greater than him. Instead of training his future competition, he went with a more creative solution. He ate her. Yes, literally. Metis was swallowed whole by Zeus. Sometime later, Athena, the divine daughter, burst out of Zeus's forehead, like a startup idea hitting its deadline. Then came Europa, the beautiful princess of Phoenicia. Zeus spotted her playing on the beach. His logic transformed into a white bull, lure her onto my back. Then, charge straight into the sea. The whole thing sounds like a Netflix reboot of Beauty and the Beast, but in this version, the beast thinks he is the heartthrob. Later, Zeus turned into a swan. Danae Zeus transformed into golden rain. Yes, he quite literally became the weather just to sneak into her bedroom. In some versions of the myth, she was asleep, thunder rolled in, and then boom, Zeus was there, the very definition of no need to knock. Every encounter followed the same pattern: transformation, plus approach, plus deception, plus disappearance. Zeus was the original ghoster. After each divine encounter, he rarely left behind anything except consequences and a child, and sometimes a curse, just for good measure. In the modern world, Zeus would not just be cancelled, he would be the reason for an entire Netflix season titled Mythical Misconduct, with Hera sitting down for interviews, holding 3,000-year-old unsigned divorce papers. The problem was, no one punished him. No one dared. Zeus was never prosecuted, never demoted, because Zeus was the system. Zeus did not need the law, he was the law. And that is why Greek mythology kept repeating the same cycle: a woman deceived, a child born, and a temple built. To thank Zeus. Hera, his official wife, was the biggest victim of this system. But we will save her story for the next episode. All you need to know for now is this: every time Hera discovered a new, illegitimate child, Olympus shook. And Zeus, he just shrugged like, oh, come on, it was a divine accident. American audiences might think they have seen every kind of scandal, presidents, celebrities, CEOs. But no one beats Zeus. Because Zeus was all of them rolled into one: a celebrity, a CEO, a Supreme Court judge, and the slipperiest man in the solar system. Zeus was not a moral role model. Zeus was a cautionary tale of absolute power left unquestioned. And while he still sits high above on Mount Olympus Beard, blowing in the celestial breeze, back resting against a throne made of clouds, we begin to realize the story of Zeus was never a love story. It was a criminal biography. Part 2. Seduction weapons. When Zeus did not use Tinder, he used shape-shifting. If modern love begins with a swipe right on Tinder, then mythological love began with a strange bird flying toward you, a random bull watching you bathe, or a golden rain dripping through your ceiling. Creepy to Zeus, it was courtship artistry. No flowers, no chocolates. Just the right disguise at the right moment, and a few god-level lies. Zeus's approach to women can be summed up in one phrase: Olympian-level catfishing. He never showed up as himself. Because when you are the most powerful CEO in the universe with a wife named Hera, who basically invented emotional acid attacks, you need a plan. And Zeus's plan was simple: the weirder the cosplay, the smoother the seduction. Leda did nothing wrong. She was simply relaxing by a lake when a snow-white swan appeared, trembling, as if injured eyes sparkling like a Disney movie poster. Instinctively, she reached out to help, and boom. The swan transformed, morality evaporated, and 9 months later, Leda laid 2 eggs. Not 2 babies. 2 actual eggs. Inside were Helen of Troy and the twin brothers Castor and Pollux. To this day, most modern obstetricians refuse to read that myth while on their lunch break. And Europa. This princess was happily playing in a field with her friends when a white bull, sleek as an Italian supercar with fur, casually strolled in. Gentle, shimmering. She climbed on for a ride. In an instant, the bull charged straight into the sea, carrying her all the way to the island of Crete. One of the most romantic kidnappings in history, considering they later named an entire continent after her: Europe. Think you live on land? You live on Zeus's romantic conquest map. Then there was Danae. Her father had locked her inside a tower with no doors or windows after hearing a prophecy that her future son would one day kill him. No entrance, no way in. But Zeus did not need a door. He turned into golden rain, as that sounds like the name of an overpriced niche fragrance, and dripped through the roof tiles, seeping into Danae's chamber. And thus Perseus was born. No one asked if Danae consented. It was just Zeus and his galactic-sized ego leaving behind not just a child, but also another legacy of influence passed through generations. Every time Zeus shapeshifted, it was a break-in. No invitation, no warning. No one knew what was happening until they were pregnant, and Hera had already flipped open her revenge calendar. That was not romance. That was divine-level social engineering. Sometimes Zeus did not even need a disguise. With Alcmene, the wife of Amphitryon, he simply turned himself into her husband, copying everything from his appearance to his voice, and slipped into her bedroom. And so Heracles was born. One of the most famous heroes in Greek mythology was the result of what could only be described as god-tier identity theft. In today's world, Zeus would not just be cancelled, he would be subpoenaed. What do we call this behavior now? Abuse of power, violation of consent, deception. But in mythology, it was rewritten as sacred love stories, a masterful rebranding of morality so subtle. We almost believed those violations were romantic legends. But if we strip away the lightning bolts, the marble statues, and the ancient verses, Zeus was not a passionate lover with a taste for adventure. He was the original symbol of a system that allowed powerful men to do wrong and still be worshipped. A system that never asked, how did the victim feel? Only was the child strong, and that system kept running smoothly, until one woman decided to stop staying silent. Not a lover, a wife, a legal official wife. The one who had watched every thunderbolt of seduction and had started keeping receipts line by divine line. Olympus was about to face a domestic drama, not caused by swans, not by golden rain, but by a woman who had endured for millennia and was now ready to burn the old myths down one piercing glare at a time, no longer believing a single word from Zeus's mouth. Part 3. Hera, the most overworked HR director in the universe. While Mount Olympus reeled from one shape-shifting affair after another, eggs hatching into humans, rainstorms turning into pregnancies, and a white bull Ubering a princess across the sea, there was one figure who remained in her chamber, gripping a spreadsheet, tapping her fingers against her throne. None other than Hera, the goddess of marriage, queen of the heavens, and the most miserable wife in the cosmos. People often call her jealous, difficult, or vindictive toward her husband's mistresses. But open up the Excel file titled List of Zeus's Romantic Victims and scan the rows, each one a woman, or sometimes a deer, a breeze, or a particularly warm bolt of lightning, and you will start to understand Hera was not jealous. Hera was customer service for divine deceit. The love story between Zeus and Hera did not begin with love. It began with a con job featuring a cuckoo bird. Zeus transformed into the bird, pretended to be injured, and flew into Hera's arms to gain her sympathy. And when she cradled the poor little creature Zeus dropped, the act shifted back into his true form, proposed on the spot, and basically forced a marriage. And mythology recorded it as the most sacred wedding of all time. From that moment, Hera became the first lady of Olympus. But she also became the human resources director of a dysfunctional celestial corporation, where the CEO was her husband, and every department was mysteriously expecting a child. Every time Zeus went on a business trip, he came back with a new demigod or a classic "it just happened" excuse. And Hera, like so many women forced to maintain appearances, could only swallow her rage, hold back the blood, and transform it into supernatural retribution. No one managed divine consequence management like Hera. Semele, a mortal lover of Zeus, was manipulated by Hera into asking Zeus to reveal his true form. The result, she was incinerated by divine light. Io turned into a cow placed under the watch of Argus with 100 eyes and driven insane by relentless biting flies. Callisto, a huntress, turned into a bear. Yes, an actual bear. Hera could not destroy Zeus, but she could erase anything that once brought him joy. And let us be clear, Hera did not hate women. Hera hated the system that turned her into the head librarian of her husband's ongoing archive of infidelity. She was the embodiment of every woman forced to uphold the family image, smiling through divine festivals, even while knowing her husband had just cosplayed as a cloud the night before and done unspeakable things with some poor nymph. The cruel irony, Hera was the goddess of marriage, the symbol of fidelity, commitment, and domestic harmony, yet she lived in the most unfaithful marriage of all time. It was never about power. Hera had enough strength to rip the lightning bolts from Zeus's hands and blow mountains off the map, but she did not. Because in the divine world, just like in the human world, angry women are not celebrated. Only reasonable women are. Hera lived like the lead actress in a 20-season affair drama never recast, never given a series finale. Each new season brought a new mistress, a new demigod, and a lie with top-tier production value. And Hera, she stayed behind, damage-controlling, image-managing, and holding grudges with the precision of AI tracking cookies. But Hera was not swallowed like Metis. She was not fooled as easily as Danae. She stayed. And her very presence was what made Zeus never truly free. Because no matter how far he flew, what form he took, or how many illegitimate children he spawned, when he returned to Olympus, Hera was there. Cold, silent, staring at him like a CEO reviewing a quarterly loss report. Mythology may call Zeus the father of the gods, but it was Hera who kept the entire mess from collapsing. She did not need to be loved. She just needed to be present as a living reminder that power must always coexist with consequence. And if Zeus was the embodiment of unchecked power, then Hera was the chronic pain of conscience that power could never silence. But perhaps the greatest sorrow was not the betrayal itself, it was knowing the betrayal would come, and still being forced to keep playing the lead. Not out of love, but because no one allowed her to walk away. Hera was the embodiment of every woman, a system forced to appear stable while everything around her was quietly falling apart. And because of that, she was the most real god in the entire mythology. No need for lightning, no need for transformations, just one look, one sentence, one tightly controlled smirk, and Zeus would know the real storm never came from the sky. The real storm came from the woman who remembered everything. Part 4. The illegitimate children and the symphony of a broken system. No need for a dramatic introduction, just imagine a TikTok-style baby reveal montage, a nymph cradling a newborn with lightning blue eyes. A princess unwrapping a swaddle only to find a baby wearing a winged helmet. A goddess freshly post-labor sighing at the heavens. Yup, his again? And Zeus, he stands afar gazing through a cloud and casually drops. Looks great. Good luck raising it. Greek mythology is not a collection of romantic tales. It is an entire cinematic universe full of illegitimate children, each one superpowered just enough to carry their father's divine drama. Every child of Zeus was either a patch update, a PR campaign, or a political strategy. But they all had one thing in common: Zeus never stuck around to raise a single one. Let us start with Athena, the goddess of wisdom, strategy, and logic. She was the no-drama, just results type. No mother, no womb, just Zeus, who after swallowing her mother Metis out of fear she would give birth to someone stronger than him, developed a splitting headache. One day, Hephaestus grabbed a hammer, split open Zeus's forehead, and out came Athena, like the world's most perfectly timed PowerPoint presentation. This was not childbirth. This was a biological pitch deck. Then came Heracles, the result of Zeus's shape-shifting affair with Alcmene, after pretending to be her husband. Did Zeus raise him? Not at all. In fact, Hera, the furious first lady, spent the rest of her existence trying to destroy him, sending snakes to his crib, driving him into madness, causing him to murder his own family, and then assigning him 12 supernatural labors like a hellish divine homework packet. Heracles was not just an illegitimate child. He was a casualty of Olympus's most dysfunctional marital Cold War. Then Perseus, the son of Zeus, and Danae, born after a golden rain through the ceiling situation. No one asked Danae if she consented. No one asked Zeus if he would take responsibility. All we know is that Perseus had to slay Medusa, rescue Andromeda, and grow up being called a hero without ever knowing if his father was real or just some weird, humid weather event. Hermes had it slightly easier, born speaking, stealing Apollo's cattle, inventing the lyre on day one. Zeus saw it, laughed, and said, "Oh, this one is fun. I will claim him. No parenting, no mentoring, just vibes." Zeus picked children like a startup picks founders if they showed talent he emotionally invested, if not back of the line. But the truth is, no matter how divine their genetics, each of these children grew up with a hole shaped like Dad that never got filled. There were no Sunday outings, no life advice like maybe do not petrify people when you are angry, no comforting embrace after a brutal battle. There was only one thing they knew for sure. Their father was Zeus, and that was both a blessing and a curse. Because once you are a child of Zeus, you no longer get to live like a normal person. You must become a legend. You must slay serpents. You must rescue princesses. You must defeat the monsters inside you, and while you are doing all that, your father is probably off somewhere, flirting as a cloud. Zeus did not raise his children. He let them become instruments to preserve his image of divine power. Every victory by Athena, Perseus, or Heracles was traced back to a single source. Well, they are children of Zeus, even if he was not there the day they learned to walk. He was the father of children who had to heal from the very trauma he caused. He was the poster child of the traditional father archetype, powerful, absent, symbolic. He created life, gave it a name, and walked away like a venture capitalist, hoping for high returns. Mythology never condemned this. On the contrary, it glorified the absence, turned it into myth. Zeus did not need to be there. Just having his name on the divine resume was enough to brand his children as heroes. And who answered for it when those children got lost, rebelled, or broke down? No one. Because supreme power never writes a report. And Hera, she kept punishing the children she never asked for because the system made her the moral enforcer while the one who caused the chaos was still being worshipped. On Olympus, illegitimate children were never Zeus's fault. They were his proof of strength, his legacy, the great mark he left after every transformation. But behind the eyes of every child, from the brilliant Athena to the burdened Heracles, there was always a silent gaze no one dared acknowledge. The pain of being forced into greatness, just so a father who was never there could keep his seat on the throne. And now the question grows louder: if every child was hurting and Zeus remained untouched, what kept him safe for all these millennia? The answer is coming, and its name is divine cancel culture. Not driven by social media, but by the voices of the children rising at last. The Olympus universe is about to face a hearing, and for the first time ever, Zeus's throne might actually tremble. Part 5: Zeus versus Me Too. When lightning cannot cover the crimes, there is no thunder, no divine soundtrack, no slow-motion hero zoom like in the Marvel movies, just the static crackle of a microphone echoing through a celestial courtroom. At the bench sits the panel of judges Athena in a tailored suit, wearing a Justice for the Goddesses pin, holding an iPad stacked with data thicker than a Netflix true crime dossier. Hera is live streaming the trial on Olympus TV. The trending caption, Zeus on trial. Is this the end of the Thunder era? And Zeus, he sits across from them. White robe looking more like a prison tunic now. Still handsome, still radiant, but this time, no one claps. The 21st century is where you can go online and say Zeus once turned into a swan and assaulted Leda and instantly trigger two reactions. One side says, come on, it is just mythology, why so serious? The other side replies, no, it is the original textbook of rape culture, normalized from the beginning of time. And that is the cruelest truth about history. When crimes are retold through poetry, they become myth. But when victims speak their truth, they are told they are overreacting. Now, translate Zeus's entire mythological record into modern legal terms. Behavior shape-shifting to approach someone without revealing true identity. Catfishing impersonation, non-consensual assault. Case studies. Leda assaulted by a swan, bestiality plus sexual assault. Danae golden rain enters through her ceiling, invasion of privacy plus violation. Alcmene tricked by someone pretending to be her husband, impersonation plus rape. Europa carried away by a white bull, kidnapping plus sexual slavery. And if your first thought is, well, times were different back then, congratulations. You just repeated the same excuse every powerful abuser throughout history has used to dodge accountability. Everyone did it back then. No, not everyone was a god. And no one gets to opt out of morality just because they existed before the age of social media. In today's courtroom, Athena speaks on behalf of the case, not because she was personally harmed, but because she represents wisdom. And wisdom has been silenced for far too long in the blinding light of divinity. She begins with a PowerPoint slide. If every transformation by Zeus was a lie, then what are the heroes born from that lie a legacy, or the product of generational trauma? And she continues, we cannot call it love if no one gave consent. We cannot call it greatness if victims had to die, go mad, or be turned into animals just to escape Hera's glare. Zeus prepares to speak, I am a god. I am not bound by the laws of mortals. Athena does not blink, mortal laws never had to bind you. You created the rules just to avoid responsibility. You were the first to separate sex from ethics, then taught the world to call it mythology. In the courtroom, the screen lights up, not with Renaissance paintings, but with eyes, with fear, with the loss of identity. Women turned into cows, bears, trees, echoes, just to escape a god who believed he had the right to love whoever he chose. One exhibit is presented Echo the nymph punished by Hera simply for talking too much with Zeus. Her crime not knowing how to stay silent in a world that only honored the powerful. And her sentence, she lost her voice. She could only repeat the words of others. Echo was a metaphor for every ancient victim allowed to exist only through someone else's version of her story. Athena closes with a question that makes all of Olympus hold its breath. If a god can do all of this and still be carved in stone, worshipped and taught in schools, then what exactly are we teaching the next generation? No verdict is read. No handcuffs are clasped. No thunder roars. Only silence. Because for the first time in thousands of years, all of Olympus and all the human spectators below saw Zeus not as a god, but as a man. A man who had used power, fame, and image to cover a truth everyone knew, but no one dared say out loud. And in that moment, Zeus's power was not undone by lightning, but by something far simpler. The right question asked at the right time. A shift in frame from legend to accountability. A small step, but the beginning of an entire new era where myths must answer for their actions. Outside the courtroom, the younger gods, Artemis, Apollo, Dionysus, stood watching. No one spoke. But their eyes were clear. We were raised in this mess, but we will not repeat it. Hera ended the live stream, closed the device, said nothing. She just exhaled. Because she knew justice is not a trial. It is a long, grinding timeline where truth must scream just to be heard, in a world obsessed with protecting the image of gods who do no wrong. But something had changed. No one looked at Zeus the same way anymore. Not because he was convicted, but because he was no longer the symbol people wanted to believe in. The thunder still rolled. The temples still glowed. But deep inside, a crack had formed. Not in the throne, but in the faith. And in the next chapter, we will see Zeus did not seduce for pleasure. He seduced to control. To plant the seeds of power, not just in wombs, but in the political bloodstream of the entire world. If you are still here, it means you are one of us, the ones who refuse to accept that gods can do whatever they want. And if just one story made you want to flip the whole myth upside down, then do not scroll away. Hit subscribe. Because every video here is a time-traveling investigation, a trial that no school textbook has ever dared to open. And if you have questions, or a Zeus situation you want us to unpack, drop it in the comments. We will go through every god, every thunderbolt, every lie ever told. One myth at a time. Part 6. When seduction becomes foreign policy, Zeus and the diplomacy of flirtation. You go ahead with your wooden horses, tidal waves, and sea ambushes, Zeus said to Poseidon, eyes fixed on a heart-shaped cloud drifting west. I just kissed the princess on the cheek, and the whole city hands me the keys. While other gods expanded their empires through war, Zeus used charm, a growing body count, and his unmatched talent for strategic reproduction to dominate the world. No armies, no weapons, just sex branded as divine destiny. Zeus was not just a flirt. He was a geopolitical player with an Olympus MBA. If mythology were a game of risk, Zeus did not play with armies, he played with offspring. Every seduction was a tactic. Every illegitimate child, a biological outpost. This was not love, not impulse. This was foreign policy wrapped in clouds and silk gowns. Take Helen of Troy, born from Zeus's swan transformation with Leda. She was not just beautiful enough to make half the world fall in love and the other half launch wars. She was the perfect bait for global chaos. When she was abducted, all of Greece rose up and marched on Troy. That kidnapping was never just about love. It was Zeus's way of population control, resetting divine power, eliminating threats, and ensuring mortals did not get too bold. Perseus sent to slay Medusa. But the prize was not just a snake-covered head. It was Andromeda, the princess of Ethiopia. A strategic marriage between Zeus's son and a resource-rich kingdom. You call it mythology. Zeus called it a territorial merger. And Heracles. He was not just a monster slayer. He was a political heir. Zeus created Heracles not just for heroic tales, but to plant a legacy strong enough to inherit Olympus. To ensure Zeus's influence reached farther than any of Hera's sanctions. And you know what? Hera, his official wife, understood this better than anyone. She was not just jealous of his wandering. She was furious that infidelity had become a strategy of domination. Zeus was the Henry Kissinger of mythology, except instead of signing treaties, he slept with the delegation. From suburban princesses to forest nymphs to core goddesses essential to natural law, no one escaped Zeus's emotional influence map. And that is not even counting the seductions that defied human tradition. With Demeter, goddess of the harvest, Zeus fathered Persephone, who would later become queen of the underworld. A calculated push into the afterlife, ensuring that even in death, Zeus's influence reached deep. With Mnemosyne, goddess of memory, Zeus slept with her for 9 consecutive nights and gave birth to the 9 muses, the goddesses of inspiration. Inspiration, memory, culture, art, all carrying Zeus's DNA. That was not coincidence. It was control, layered control, extending from politics to nature to thought itself. If you think Zeus was merely a man with many children, you are underestimating the scale of his domination. He was a living map of power where every romantic conquest was a strategic foothold. There is no weapon more effective than a child powerful enough to rule a new land, yet still turning back to call him father. Zeus did not conquer territories like Poseidon. He ceded them, then let time and mythology rebrand it all as legendary glory. And do not think he stopped at the Greek borders. Zeus is part of the reason Greek mythology became a global cultural system. He left his footprints and offspring in every region ancient Greece could touch, from the Caucasus to Libya to Asia Minor. In every local myth, there is always a strange man, shape-shifting, appearing, then vanishing, just like Zeus. If other gods represented natural elements, thunder, wind, sea, sunlight, Zeus represented infectious power. Power that did not need invasion, did not need war, only needed to be in your blood. Today we call it soft colonialism. The 21st century used culture, media, and tech to infiltrate and dominate. The mythological era used illegitimate children, seduction, and legend to rewrite truth. Zeus did not need to exist to be present. All it took was a child bearing his name. And suddenly, the world bowed. The question is, how many kingdoms, how many civilizations, how many empires were just branch offices of the Zeus empire? And here lies the chilling twist. You thought Zeus was a character. In truth, he was a system. A machine powered by seduction, sustained by children, expanded by storytelling. The lightning bolt, just PR. The real power lay in spreading his seed and rewriting every conquest as a divine love story. In the next chapter, those children will begin to speak, not to claim thrones, but to reclaim truth, a family reckoning. No blood, no thunder, just cracks forming in the polished surface of the so-called father of everything. And this time, Zeus will not be able to outrun it. Part 7. The Olympus family meeting. Everybody hates dad, no thunder, no heroic soundtrack, just an empty room, a round table, 4 chairs. Athena sits with arms crossed like a CEO in a performance review. Heracles slams the table. Dionysus sips wine, his eyes drifting, but his smirk says, "This is going straight to godly TikTok." And in the middle of the room, Zeus. No throne, no storm. Just a father trying to apologize and failing spectacularly. "I am sorry," he says, the sentence every child wants to hear from the all-powerful, ever-absent father. Only this time, hearing it from Zeus is like hearing a banker say, bankruptcy is just the start of a new journey. Athena, iPad in hand, clicking through battle footage, delivers her feedback like a quarterly report. "You did not raise me. You swallowed my mother. Then you gave birth to me from your forehead. And for thousands of years you called me your pride. Every time I won a war. But not once did you ask if I was okay." Zeus is silent. Dionysus leans over, mutters under his breath, "Could be worse. I was born from his thigh." Athena glances at him, and your mother, Dionysus, shrugs. burned alive for believing in him. Then Heracles explodes full action movie scream, and me, I was hunted by Hera since birth. Driven insane, I murdered my family. Then I was forced into slavery under Eurystheus, some pathetic relative I never respected. Zeus raises his hand in that calm down son gesture. No, you do not get to call me son. The air turns thick. Dionysus gently taps his wine glass on the table. I am the god of wine. People love me. I throw parties for all of humanity. But I always feel not enough. Because I am not Athena. I am not Heracles. I am on the sidelines. Remember that I was the kid you did not acknowledge until I made enough noise. Zeus says nothing. He who once roared out storms, who could morph into any creature to seduce the living, now finds no form small enough to crawl inside the disappointment of his children. The Olympus family meeting, meant to be a healing session, is really just a backlog of emotional invoices spanning millennia. Each child was a trophy used for PR, for dominance, for padding a legend. But none of them were loved like a person. No one got hugged. No one got taught how not to turn people into snakes when angry. No one ever heard a kind word from Zeus, unless they had just killed something. Athena continues, her voice now cold as the wind atop Olympus. You call us heroes, but all we ever did was try to survive in a system you built to worship yourself. Zeus looks at his children, one born from his head, one born from his thigh, one from a shape-shifted deception, one from a political disaster dressed as fate. He was once the father of the gods. Now in this room, he is just the origin of a generation with superhuman trauma. Dionysus snaps, we are gods, but we are also victims. You were once a monument. Now we sit here picking up the shards of our broken faith, shattered every time you called it destiny after abandoning another child. No one curses Zeus. No one strikes him. And that is what hurts most. Because silent disappointment is the final death of power. Heracles exhales. You used to say, I created you to keep peace. But really, we were the sacrifices so you could avoid accountability. We fought monsters. We slayed dragons. We bore Hera's wrath, the wrath of gods of men. So you could sit above it all and say, that is my child. The meeting ends without tears. Only an open door, and one by one they leave. No one looks back. Zeus remains seated. The light is no longer golden. The thunder no longer rolls. He is no longer the center. Only a father left behind in the room where myth fell to earth. There is one sentence no one says, but they all think it. If he were mortal, he would have been cancelled by part 1. But as a god, he survived to part 7. Because power does not disappear in a day. It erodes through every look, every word, every silence. And Zeus is becoming memory more than myth. In the final chapter, the truth will no longer be found on Olympus. It will lie here in the world of humans, where Zeus is still worshipped, taught, painted, remembered. And the question is not whether Zeus was guilty, but this, who got to rewrite the story, and why did we let them? Part 8, the ending. Zeus was never punished, because he was the system. The camera slowly pans across a massive statue, Zeus seated firmly on a throne, lightning bolt in hand, gaze cast toward the distance as if deep in strategic thought. Then the lights dim. The glow fades. The statue becomes a shadow, revealing behind it a chalk-written question, messy like a philosophy class blackboard. How many times has power been forgiven just because it was power? Zeus was never judged. No moral reckoning, no trial, no day of reckoning. No one ever stood up and said Zeus was wrong, and that is not because he was right. It is because he was the system. You saw it after 7 parts of exposing, dissecting, tracking, and running a group therapy session for his abandoned children. What happened to Zeus? Nothing. The statue still stands. Schools still teach his name. People still print him on Starbucks cups, hoodies, phone wallpapers. Hollywood still casts him in films as the father of the gods with a deep voice and 6-pack abs. No one talks about Danae, or Leda, or Semele. No one asks, wait, that swan bull golden rain stuff, was that real? As long as it is beautiful, majestic, and ancient, it gets a pass. Because Zeus does not need justice. He has legacy. No one puts Zeus on trial, because to do that, you would have to put the entire system on trial. You would have to confront everyone who sculpted, wrote, retold, published textbooks, produced blockbusters. And you know what weighs more than guilt? Profit. Was Zeus ever canceled? Numbrum. Because Zeus was never just a man. He was a format. The template of a powerful man who holds power, goes unquestioned, fails upward but it is called destiny, seduces and it is framed as fate, abandons and it is spun as a heroic journey. Zeus is the mythological excuse manual for every bad man in power. I was not cruel, I was fated. No one is perfect, not even the gods. She wanted it. Come on, I'm Zeus. Zeus's greatest sin is not the individual acts. It is this: he redefined legend in a way that made every victim look like a supporting character in someone else's greatness. Every time someone retells a Zeus seduction with awe, the truth gets shrink-wrapped in poetic ribbon. The victims never get a voice. They do not have microphones. Only Zeus does. And his PR team is an entire civilization. Ask a 10-year-old who is the most powerful god in Greek mythology. They will probably say, Zeus. Now ask, what did Zeus do wrong? Silence, because we have never told that part of the story. Now imagine if we rewrote mythology from the victim's perspective. Not Zeus came and gave a blessing, but a man hiding his identity disguised himself as my husband, made me pregnant, and disappeared. That is not a legend. That is a testimony. But how many would dare tell it that way when society keeps saying, come on, do not go after the gods? And so Zeus still sits there, not because he deserves to, but because we are too used to seeing the guilty immortalized in stone. In our time, Zeus might be a CEO, a director, a politician, a legend in the industry, and the system will say, do not ruin the myth. He contributed so much. Separate the art from the man. Every one of those lines once used to protect Zeus is still being used for the modern-day versions of him. So what now? Is it all hopeless, Jotun? Because if there is one thing that can change a monument, it is the story. And we are retelling it. Not to destroy, but to see clearly. Not to cancel, but to unmask the truth that has been hidden beneath the glow. Zeus was never punished, but he was unmasked. And for someone who lived off image, that is the heaviest punishment of all. And you still watching to this point, you now hold a power Zeus never had. You can choose to tell the story differently. No clouds, no thunder, just honesty. And one simple question: who are we choosing to glorify and why? If you are still here, maybe you have stepped out of mythology and begun to see the world a little more clearly. Share this story. Comment if you have ever encountered a modern-day Zeus, and subscribe, because there are many more legends still waiting to be told, from the ground up. Thank you for visiting the most honest version of Olympus.